Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Halloweekly, and we're taking you back
To 1994.
1994, VHS 94.
VHS 94. I'm excited to finally talk about a franchise from a fresh perspective because I hadn't seen the other ones before the podcast. So
That's so
I'm
wild
pretty
to me.
new to it. Which is weird because I love found footage. But you love VHS,
Yeah, I the only one I haven't seen is Viral,
right?
which seems like the weakest of all of them.
Yeah, it seems like the buzz was less on that than I ever remember for any of the other ones.
Yeah.
Cool. So what I was thinking was just to jump into this as to get our bearings because it's an anthology and anthologies are a little tricky. Is I just wanted to see if I could get you to rank the segments. Is that what you call these in anthology? The parts? What's the right word?
Yeah,
for
I
this?
don't know.
Chapters? What the hell is
Chapters, segments,
I don't know.
tapes.
Each mini movie inside, right? So just do it like where you think the movie should be on Rotten Tomatoes score if it was just itself, the segment, right?
Well,
Go ahead.
the overall film right now on Rotten Tomatoes
It's insane.
Yeah, that's what really
It's like
blew our mind.
98, 96, something like that.
It's the fact that it's above 90 and it's a horror anthology, like those never ever
Nope.
really do
I mean,
well.
horror movies generally not, but even
And
anthologies even more.
Yeah,
so.
you might as well just like shooting off of half your body.
Appropriate for this movie.
Yeah.
For revision. And it's also Shudder's largest premiere ever, which I feel like is two pieces of news there. One is I felt like for the first time on this podcast, really, I didn't question to myself whether I had to explain what Shudder was. So Shudder's come a long way, right?
Yeah.
Which good for them. I mean, it's an amazing. They're doing an amazing job. And then the other piece of news is that it was the biggest premiere. I mean, they've had some big stuff, including Host, which blew up during the
Yeah, and
pandemic.
like Joe Bob burnt their servers up at one point in time, so
Joe Bob still holds the record
Joe
for
Bob
more physical
walked-
damage inflicted on the
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Joe Bob walked so VHS could run.
That's awesome. Joe Bob, you were the booster rocket. All right, so the Holy Hell is the framing story.
Yeah, the SWAT team invading the place.
It's a SWAT team invading a place. Then we won't do the spoiler yet, but there's the twist at the end is that it's a little different than you imagine.
But not really.
But not really. A lot of people I saw online were complaining about this one. I saw a few people fighting for it. What say you?
It's the framing is the worst part of the movie.
Okay.
But it's interesting, and the whole VHS aesthetic like kind of keeps you drawn in the whole time. But it is by far like out of the four stories, if you're including the framing story, making a total of 5, it's fifth. Like it comes in at 5th place. Like it feels like the cutscene of a cheesy arcade shooter from like the 90s.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
like
yeah.
the early 90s.
Yeah, totally.
It's not really well done. The acting's over.
So it's like a 48% Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah, something like yeah.
So it feels like something like
Yeah.
that, which is probably where all the other VHS unfortunately is, which they don't deserve to be. Okay, first story: Hail Ratma, Storm Drain, Ratman. So this is an amazing performance by this actor for doing the reporter, by the way, because that was awesome. She really was. She blew my mind because I've known people who do that job sort of, and she was nailing their how they function and how they operate. Like, oh, that was really cool. And by the way, Storm Drain, also huge shout out. We might want to do a mini review of Veggie Masher, Veggie-Matic,
yeah.
the cheesy 90s commercial.
That was good.
Which was just fantastic. All right, so Storm Drain is Ratma, a reporter going through the storm drain, trying to. First, it starts as one kind of investigation, then she is going for another investigation. They do a decent job of making it feel like she might be doing it to win an award and be a journalist, on the rise. And part of it is that she's just authentically interested in figuring out to do a good thing and help, expose whatever. But it gets really scary. What do you think?
Dude, that one was a great way. I mean, aside from the weird framing story thing, which the framing story honestly doesn't get bad until the end. It's okay up until the end. But starting with Ratman, the urban legend of, well, it's not really an urban legend anymore of Ratman. It was seriously good.
It was very good. Right?
And I loved that in this VHS, I mean, they do it in others, but it's been a while since I've rewatched them. The way they explain why you're in a found footage situation is done really well. In this case, you're the cameraman from like a local news station.
Right.
I thought that's really well done.
So
it's not just,
and it looked great. It looked the way it should.
And it's not just found footage to be found footage. Like everything has a reason why it would be there. And I thought they did all of that beautifully. This one in particular, like very well done.
Totally.
The monster in this,
fantastic.
Great monster.
Fantastic.
It's been a while since there's been a really cool fucking monster. This is like Ratma,
or whatever. I think it's Ratman, like abbreviated. Like if you took the N off of like Mothman.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this one was really good. It was the perfect length, short and sweet, and then it has like a scare package-esque ending.
Totally.
What'd you think?
I loved it. So I should rate them. So I think I would put the framing story as the worst out of the bunch. But I will tell you, I like to, especially on a day like today in LA where you never get this kind of thing, but it's rainy, it's spooky, it feels like actual fall for once. And I was just walking over here and thinking about, was anything in this scary? Because the VHS series is scary, and this is not, right? So like not mostly, but there were some good scary moments in here. It just didn't feel as scary as I remember the other ones being at their scariest. But I don't think that this needed it because this is a little campier than those. But it doesn't matter. When I'm walking over here, I was like, would this scare me? And the first thing I thought of was the storm drain. Before even Ratma, I thought of just going how they went through to meet Ratma, right? Then I thought of Ratma, which the design of Ratma is really cool because he looks like you could mistake him from a man from far away, right? So I love that, but I also remember the visuals from the framing story, and I hated the framing story, but it was the scary. It was one of the two things in the thing that popped in my head when I thought, was there anything scary in here? So the worst part of the movie had one of the scariest bits to me. Right. Really? Yeah. Is that weird? But anyway, so I don't like the framing story that much. I love Ratma. I would put Ratma at like 88% Rotten Tomatoes.
That's exactly
easily like nailed it. Really well done. Great, like you said, and very, very authentic to how it should look and feel as it's going. So you're never like out of the world because you realize they're making it look that way. They had to like produce it to look like from '94, and a lot of times that's like, let's be honest, Wonder Woman '84 probably had a 2 million X budget of this movie and was less believable of actually being in the time it was.
They just went to like an old mall and like put on a funny sweater and they're like, it's the 80s.
Right, like little VHS 94 was more believable than the Titanic of superhero movies. So, I thought the Ratma was great.
Even the foreshadowing, like you meet sort of the cult leader of Ratma without knowing you're meeting the cult leader of Ratma until later. And the way Ratma chooses if you're going to be part of his salvation is xenomorphic to like the max.
It was awesome effects.
It was really good.
Which is, I don't expect to come out of these necessarily talking about effects. I think they're their best when they do something really minimal, right? But this looked great. I don't know how they made it look so good.
And the twist ending.
Oh, then they howling it up. Yeah, it ends like big spoilers.
No, that one is like the perfect way. As soon as they kicked it off, I was like, I totally see why
this is leading it off.
This is leading it off. What did make sense to me was the fact that it was like 90 something on Rotten Tomatoes by the critics, but like 50s by the fans. I'm like, what was missing?
Well, we'll get to that. Okay. Because I think I know. But okay, so The Empty Wake is the next segment. It was written and directed by Simon Barrett of Your Next and Blair Witch fame and really mega talent, honestly, from my point of view. But so, what'd you think of The Empty Wake?
100%.
Whoa, 100%.
100%, dude. I'm telling you.
Hit me.
Listen. This was the closest thing to like an EC Comics, cover to film like we probably have in all of film history. Like if you go look at those old like EC comic like book covers, like it just has this like ooey gooey sense. This whatever that is, they translated it perfect.
Right, and one of your favorite movies of all time, I know, is Creepshow. And this had most Creepshow vibes of anything in here.
The other thing was I loved how simple this is. So now I will say, while it is my favorite because of how simple it is, the framing of how they used the cameras and how it became found footage, I think, was weakest here.
Okay.
Because it was just they're like, hey, we're gonna film you, or the family requested that this.
That's right. They had this excuse of we need to set up a bunch of cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that wasn't true found footage then.
Yeah, it was.
There's choices being made about which camera you're seeing from when and like whatever.
Yeah,
right, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it was the weakest in that sense, but in terms of, just being super creepy, like first of all, funeral homes are like unnerving, like they're too clean for what they are. It doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
We should start a slightly dirty chain of funeral homes, or it'll be
At least it would make sense. There's dead bodies there. You're not fooling me with your lightly vacuumed carpet. So they always weird me out.
My favorite, yes.
They also smell kind of weird too.
They
like
do. And the smell. You're watching Phantasm, and there's a smell in your room.
Yeah, you exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what that is. And I grew up, 2 houses down from a funeral home. So like, we used to like ride our bikes in like the parking lot when there wasn't like a funeral going on. So like it's always just kind of weird.
Right.
But I keep saying simplicity. I gotta get out of that. The woman running the wake by herself and hearing the coffin knock. That's all you need for a horror story. That's all you need. It's so bare bones. The coffin keeps moving. The keeps making thuds. And I will say the 94 plays really well. The time setting of 1994 plays really well here because she can't just go on her smartphone and look up the obituary. Right. She has to like call her friend and be like, so like, what was the deal with like this kid who jumped off a building?
Someone has to research it and get back to her like Galaxy Quest style when just along's like having to tell them what to do, right?
Yeah, and so I thought that was really fun because she's just on pins and needles like waiting. But so while it was like really easy in the story, it did give you enough to chew on.
Was it easy on the story? See, this is the interesting thing to me.
Yes. It wasn't.
You think it was easy? Because who was the guy that came in?
So it's like railroads. You got the one track here, one track here. The woman staying behind, running the wake by herself, and hearing a knock on the coffin, and then
the Edgar Allan Poe part of it.
The story happens.
Right. So
you almost get to understand the story, or feel the story on two different levels.
I'm not. I think you're right. The thing that's weird to me is this has this weird simplicity that's not simplicity to it because and I think that's part of what makes it part of the VHS thing, because VHS is weird to me. Like if it's not weird, then I don't feel like it belongs there. If it was just Creepshow, it wouldn't be in VHS. Right? But there's a tornado. There's a weird possible raise the dead visitor. There's all these random elements that I didn't expect to pop up in such a simple story. It'd be like reading Pit and the Pendulum with Edgar Allan Poe, and it's a guy and a blade and just swinging, and it's getting closer, and there's a guy talking to him, and that's the simple, and then a UFO shows up. Right, that's what I felt like happened here a couple times. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Why did he leave?
The weird stuff. So you have the woman, holding the wake by herself.
Yes.
She has a knock on a coffin. And so the other two bits of information it gives you is one, her friend calls her back and says he was yelling a bunch of weird the guy in the coffin was on a roof of a building yelling a bunch of weird religious stuff. Then he jumps off. Right. The second weird thing that happens is one guy shows up to the wake, speaking a different language, and then he just ends it with I've said all my respects, and then leaves. Right. So that's the only other information you have, but it's enough to be like, are they related? How are they related? What was this game?
And also the creature didn't go on attack mode until the guy came, said his things, and left.
Yeah. And
so did he activate it? Was he trying to stop it? Was he not aware any of that was happening?
And that's where you get the the fatty part of the steak.
That's what I'm saying. It seems like simple, but there are more unanswered questions in this tiny little story than there are in the framing story, the framing story was written like they thought it was horror 2001.
Yeah, it was just
right. That should have a lot more unanswered questions in it, but I'm fine. I kind of knew what was happening there, and I didn't have any more questions. Empty Wake had 3 story beats.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, well that's a really simple story, except wait, and then what? What was it? Right? I'm like, this is a cool effect that this is having, simple and complicated at the same time.
So all of that leading up to the inevitable. The thing inside the coffin gets out. That reveal was such an oh shit moment.
So good.
Like, so a big storm happens, the lights go out. Typical horror, like typical horror stuff, but like all of the right horror stuff.
Yeah.
When she turns the corner and the coffin is completely tilted up, wide open, and the body's missing. Like that's where that old school like Tales from the Crypt kind of like vibe comes in.
Yeah. And it was really well designed and shot and executed.
Well, that's the thing is the mortician was like, I did my best trying to sew him back up. So like they kind of like tease you a little bit of like what to expect. And the zombie, if it's a zombie kind of like design is really good.
It is really good. And I was laughing while I was having the horror fun with it. So I was able to enjoy it and be not scared so much, but have that horror ride.
Yeah.
Right? And one reason I was laughing is because I felt like I was grading the mortician's work.
Yeah.
Because the corpse fell apart in kind of the way you would expect from the injuries described. Right? And what if he fixed 4 things on it and kind of described what he did, it fell apart in that order.
Yeah, there's like his eyeballs or having this like face.
And if that mortician had 5 more years on the job, this thing would have held together like through hours longer.
It would have looked like
it would have been Frankenstein walking around like fully ambulatory. This thing was having trouble operating.
Yeah, no, and the way they made the zombie move without a face was awesome, and he was just working on like pure auditory senses. I thought was good. Until
which is awesome.
Another thing, but that story alone, that's probably one of my favorite in the VHS franchise, honestly.
All right, so and then before we move on, I just wanted to say that part of one of the things I love about this movie is I just realized from talking about it that all the ways into the scary stuff are also scary. And I love in a horror movie when it's like that. The storm drain was as scary as Ratma. And in Empty Wake, the funeral home was as scary as the monster.
I kept listening to that organ music.
And in this next one, the lab is as scary as what's being made in the lab. So this is The Subject.
Yes.
With the Tim Burton Mars Attacks experiments going on. What'd you think of The Subject?
This one, I think I have this as my 4th favorite one.
Okay.
The one thing that really pulled me out was everything looked very VHS, distorted, imagery kind of stuff. But this one, like, swapped. Like, it didn't look like it was shot. Like, it looked like
shot yesterday.
Yeah, like it was like
as clear and as possible, right?
Yeah, there was like the slightest amount of I don't know what it is, but like where the colors kind of distort around the edges of a subject. I think they had like a twang of that.
Okay.
And I think that was they were like, look, VHS, like you know what I mean? Like,
right, that doesn't work.
So I didn't like that aspect of it because it kind of pulled me out of the 94 draw that the movie had.
You turned to me while we were watching it and you were like, why is this so clear?
Yeah, it was funny, like that before that the framing story of the 2 others like taught my brain like this is what the world looks like in this movie. Mm-hmm. Very distorted with the shit running through, like a bad.
Well, and part of the reason it sticks out so bad is because they did such a good job of making it look like 94 VHS everywhere else.
Yeah.
It worked against them that they were so good at it. Because it really stuck out when they weren't.
It really did. Overall, it's better than some of the other stories from the other franchises.
Okay.
Uh,
So where on Rotten Tomatoes would you put it?
this one, 76 or 72.
Okay.
Maybe even a 70.
Yeah.
In that route. 70, 75. Let's just call it
This
that.
is like a 60. I have this as barely fresh. I really liked a lot of it. I think the acting here wasn't great compared to the other ones necessarily, unless you're just going for B movie acting,
Yeah.
right? But it's not so much that. I mean, it doesn't even matter so much. It's more. First of all, I could not figure out why it didn't look like 1994.
Yeah.
So I kept bumping on that, which is weird because I don't usually do that. But it was, for some reason, this was so in your face. Second, it was, and with no explanation, which sometimes I like, but didn't like here. And then the other, first of all, I loved the main character, actually. I liked
The
that
doctor?
this was the girl, the subject.
yeah.
The subject. I liked that this was the longest from start to finish setup of the reveal. Like, they all have a setup of a reveal. We meet, we hear about Ratma, we know we're going to see Ratma, and then we see Ratma, right? But things happen after you see Ratma. And in the Empty Wake, things happen. A tornado happens after we see
the start of
the zombie
apocalypse,
right? Right, you see the start of a zombie apocalypse, right? In this one, the reveal of what she actually looks like had been teased so hard and so long
Yeah.
throughout it. And I feel like they faked you out 5 times about, are we going to finally realize? Because so he's basically doing the body horror, make human, half appliance hybrids,
Yeah,
or
some kind of
machine,
cyborg-esque.
machine or right, cyborg. Thank you. And he made a couple cool ones. I actually liked her. I loved her. I thought she was awesome.
Yeah.
She gave me Bride of Frankenstein vibes, which I never get.
The
from
eyes
her.
were cool.
So cool. I thought it was great. I love that it was the longest to pay off tease, because that's a really risky thing to do in a horror movie.
Yeah.
If you're telling horror fans, I've got something special to show you,
And you're not gonna see
the
it for
entire
20
time, right? Exactly. And then you fake us out a bunch of times on the way there. That's a big buildup for, and it's not so much that the design was like a home run out of the park design. It was great, but not like worth that much buildup. It was that the message the Bride of Frankenstein thing they were trying to get across, along with its design, was good enough to tease that long,
Right.
which was great. I thought it was great. So the thing that held it back for me was, although I also liked the machete arm guy. He was
cool.
He was
all of the
was very Silent
cyborg-esque
Hill.
like CGI stuff looked really, really good.
I thought for some reason it was too long for what it was, and then I couldn't against the other ones. It felt the weirdest just to be weird.
Yeah.
Where I felt like the other ones did a better job of gracefully being weird.
Yeah.
This one was just like, I'm weird. I'm not going to
It
tell
felt
you
the most
why.
out of place. Like if there was a VHS, set at a different time. I don't know. Like,
VHS X in space, right?
Something like that.
Just
And that was in there. I'd be like, that's the perfect fit.
Totally.
It wasn't that it was bad.
Right.
It's just it was the most out of place.
And it was a little, I mean, I'll tell you this, I would have it much higher if Black Mirror didn't exist. But a lot of what they were doing with her, like, she made horrifying sounds when she was scared, and it's supposed to rattle you, like it's emotionally
yeah,
supposed
like you
to.
could sort of hear like half crying.
Right,
half,
it's the same effect you get from Vincent Price's The Fly. Help me, that.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be getting that from the sounds she's making, and I did. They were well done. That's the weird thing is that they were doing it, and I felt like that's exactly the way Black Mirror would have done it.
Yeah, this one just felt because like there wasn't really anything like really scary about this movie in general. Like a lot of it was just a lot of really awesome.
Hold that thought. I want to get to the scary. I want to ask you at the end.
For this one, it was just so actiony that it.
Good point. Right.
But it was pretty decent action. Like
Right.
It wasn't that it was bad.
Well,
like,
60% is still fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
I'll move it to 65.
Okay, there we go.
I think it's pretty all right. Terror is the first Patriots militia have weaponized something weird segment. What do you think of?
So that one would be my third favorite.
Third favorite. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I gave my fourth favorite like a 65, I'd give this one a 66.
No, you didn't give it 65. I think you gave it higher, and I think you probably think this is higher too, right? This was fun, no? Or no?
Honestly though, just I would probably rate it like a 70.
Okay.
Like it's a cool twist on
Mm-hmm.
like a vampire story. You could definitely see a quote well-armed militia fucking up royally the way these guys do because
100%.
they're ran by
100%.
A bunch of smooth-brained individuals.
100%.
Uh, and this one actually felt like this one probably felt the most 90s.
It
Out
did.
of
It
all of
totally
them.
did.
Like I could just smell the cigarettes in the classic rock station, and their trucks and shit.
I think this one's not as well done as a lot of the other things in the other ones, even the one we just talked about, the subject. But
Yeah.
this was where the fun came from. Like a lot of the fun came from this one.
Yeah,
right?
this one was a very interesting like setup.
Right.
and
It was
idea.
like Green Room made by Uwe Boll.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It was.
Right. It's the plot of Green Room, kind of.
Yeah.
But with vampires and like filmed really just dirty.
It felt dirty. The whole thing felt really dirty. I loved how you didn't understand the subject that they were holding prisoner. Spoilers, is a vampire.
Right.
Early on, I felt like there's some instances where they would have told you it was a vampire off the bat, but the fact that they killed him, got his blood, and then
Killed him some more.
Yeah, then they went to go kill him again. You're like, wait, what? It's like how they killed this guy? It's like how are they
Is
killed
this
him twice?
Groundhog Day? Are we
Yeah.
repeating? Right. Yeah, totally.
What'd you think?
So I thought it was. So it's weird. This one, I think you're right. I think it's 70%. I don't think I liked the vampire blood twist as much as you.
Yeah, because the vampire blood in that one was like a C4. It's like
Right, but it was also the thing I couldn't get to in my head was even discovering that vampire blood did that, and that being your thought.
yeah.
Right? Just buy dynamite, man. Or get some
just
fertilizer. I don't know. Just like go to
something.
the dark web or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they went to great lengths and put themselves in serious harm's way. And the whole time they're making all the wrong decisions. So you just figured they just made a wrong decision all the way because that's how they do it. So,
Yeah.
I guess I got to give it a pass for that. It was just fun. It was where a lot of the fun came from to me, and the whole grouping was not just anticipating how they were gonna go wrong because you knew they were gonna
Eventually, yeah.
you knew they were gonna go wrong, but I also like that little like frisson of weirdness. VHS hasn't usually felt subtle to me, right? But they had this little idea in here of we're gonna give you a vampire tale, but this is the most pitiful vampire. The most pitiful vampire of all time, right? This vampire is getting its ass kicked for the whole whole sequence, right? So vampires, Bela Lugosi. There's a great bit in Light at the End, a splatterpunk vampire novel from the '80s, where the one vampire is making fun of Bela Lugosi and saying that he was like, he's not a real vampire, we're more animalistic, like, and everything headed that way, right? 30 Days a Night, they basically are like wolves,
Right.
with teeth and pale skin, right? They can jump from roof to roof and move 60 million miles per hour or whatever, so they become super powerful. They're not like what you picture how it started with Bela Lugosi. This is the opposite of that. This vampire doesn't leave a room for the entire time, and it was a weird effect to take something and run it so opposite at you, right? And not really explain a lot of why it's happening that way until the very, very end. I thought that part was ambitious and cool.
I thought my favorite thing about this one was the afterthought of what they were planning on doing, because you see the militia go, they scope out this building, and you sort of think, because this is before you know what they're holding as a vampire, but they're thinking of either blowing the place up or going and shooting the place up, because they get a lot of guns from this officer who was able to sneak guns out to them. and the the right hand man of like Sergeant Doofus or whatever his name is. That guy was that guy was such a doofus. But his right hand man was like my favorite actor because he reminded me of Bob in Batman. You know, like he just like really goofy. But there was a line,
and that character's great.
That character's always great.
Like,
the right hand man, and there's a line when they're scoping out. He like shakes his head. He goes, "Oh yeah, and there's a daycare in there." And you think it's because they're going to shoot up, but afterwards, when you think about it, like they were planning on unleashing like a vampire, like in there, and the fact that there just would have been a daycare full of kids that just would have been completely screwed is kind of like a haunting, idea.
Yeah, totally, and also the fact that it took the vampire so long to it caused one of the weirdest transition moments for me because the grandeur of how everything, all hell breaks loose, kind of like what I think of as the Lord of the Flies situation that happens in Midnight Mass. How everything just breaks down, the church gets overrun and all, how it's shot and above and the candle vigil and all that. And this is doing the same storyline. like it's a complex, it's a situation where there's a lot of like very culty behavior going on, and then they lose control of the beast that they've unleashed, and it slouches towards Bethlehem now, and it's all over, and they're doing the same thing but the shittiest version of it you can imagine,
like a pickup truck version of this.
So it was a very jarring whatever, but it was really fun. That's what I got for it mostly, is it was the fun part.
I agree.
It was there. You can't convince me it's the campier thing in this movie, if there is one, is the very end of Storm Drain where the reporter goes nuts. Right.
Yes.
And it's just the howling ending again, right? But I feel like this is even campier than that. It's just so grimy.
It's grimy
that you don't notice.
It is absolutely
that you don't
grimy.
notice it, right? All right, and then the framing story ends, but we already graded the framing story, so I guess we don't need.
I mean, it's such a non-shock, honestly.
Right.
You're like, wow, everything you thought, we brought you here for a reason. We're gonna make a weird movie with you. You're like, okay, yes, it's VHS. Sure.
That was like a very huge yawn. Weird to think that was where that belonged. Is it the thing to leave us on?
It was very weird, but luckily, all the stories,
everything else was just and like
so
I said,
fun.
the visuals even in the framing story were, and even the acting, all of that with the effects, all of that was great. I'm telling you, the people who they're with their faces upturned with weird wounds, just kind of like hissing or moaning at the sky or whatever, which you kept getting visuals of in the framing story, were great. Like really well done, really spooky. It just, the story itself was like the biggest wind up to the smallest punchline. Right, but everything else
Definitely last
everything
place.
else was kind of amazing. So I'm really glad to be like on a winning franchise train for once, because
It was also great just to have something fun to watch in October.
right, totally.
Because you know how we feel about Halloween Kills.
No, we don't, and we had good vibes too. So I do want to talk just for a second about physical media in general, like, because physical media is spooky, I realize, just in and of itself, right? So like Civil War photographs are creepy because it's just an old technology that doesn't exist anymore and looks weird to you, right?
Yeah.
And this, I realize there's a particular creepiness to this kind of medium, because the whole VHS vibe, when I think of VHS, I think of things that are randomly on there. It's the in-between things, the things you didn't know were recorded or half recorded, or you recorded all the commercials and now it's 25 years ago and you're listening to, commercials for, Eddie Murphy Raw or whatever's happening in it, right? Like, and local news, break-ins and all that stuff. And there's a randomness, but almost like a haphazard permanence to it, that it sort of is forever, but sort of is fuzzing out. There's a creepiness to that this got really right, and I love that vibe. I think it did a great job of capturing the physical media, creepy nature of it.
It's very unsettling,
right?
Just to have a bunch of glitches on the screen, and you have to kind of like squint your eyes to like make out like what it is you're looking at.
Totally.
I don't know. I think it engages the viewer a little bit more. You have to put a little more brain power into decoding the image in front of you.
And it's special. That's a good point. It's special to, in its own way, because there's some technologies you just couldn't make creepy. Like 8-tracks can't be creepy.
No, this is dusty.
It's just dusty. Right? Some things can be creepy, like Civil War photographs, and some technologies. Like you wonder if 80, 100 years from now, if just 3-dimensional flat will be creepy, because probably everything will be holographic
and
some
kind of interactive
8D.
4D.
Right, yeah. Exactly, right? So just the flatness will be like, that's so flat, it's creeping me out, right? So I don't know what can become creepy or not, but I know some technologies get creepier over time. And some movies are actually really good at swinging back and capturing that, like The Ring was.
Right.
And this had that vibe, but its own take on it, which I thought was great.
No, I do not understand the low audience score, and usually when the critic score is high and the audience score is low,
so right,
you're like, sometimes it's weird. Like sometimes the audience score is high, the critics is low, and like you never know who's right.
Right.
And in the rare instance, the critics I think were right about this, because usually with horror they rate it low. Right. Yeah. Right. But I think this is one of those rare cyclone bombs.
Cyclone bomb
of critics getting it right about a horror movie.
Let's finish with that. Let's talk about just for a second the fact that I think the reason the audience doesn't like it is I can see not thinking that it feels VHS. I can actually see real hardcore VHS fans liking VHS Viral more than this, because VHS Viral, from the few little things I've seen of it, feels more VHS. This felt more Creepshow to me, which is a weird feeling, right? Yeah. So maybe it just doesn't feel VHS to them. I don't know. That could be one reason. I don't think most people don't like the framing story, and
it is
and that's the glue that was holding it together. So if you got bad glue,
yeah,
right, your building is going to suffer, right? So I think that might be part of it, and I think inexplicably a lot of people didn't like The Empty Wake. It feels too traditional horror, or like you were saying, almost EC Comics kind of thing, and that's not what they want from EC Comics. You'll notice is a different technology. It's paper technology.
If you don't want that in a horror movie, suck my butt. That shit is
straight from '94.
That shit is perfect. I don't know what people are talking about. Like, to me, like, honestly, like they could have slapped Tales from the Crypt. They could have slapped the Crypt Keeper on the front. They could have slapped Creepshow on the front. No matter where you land, that lands, it's gonna be perfect. In fact, I hope there's 12 more like that in the next VHS movies.
I'm totally with you. And that's the other thing though, was I'm not the person to ask, because I have come late to VHS, but I felt like if you dug a little, or even thought, like if you sat with it, because it's even more after I watched it 24 hours later that it is occurring to me that there were little like orange peel decorations of weirdness dropped everywhere, right? Just little twist here, little twist there, and that was just the spice I needed to make it feel definitely VHS, even if it didn't look VHS necessarily some of the time. It felt VHS because when you investigate a little further, you're like, wait, that's weird, or why is that, or why did it say that, or why does it look like that? Why does Ratma look like the thing from Relic, the Relic melting?
Yeah.
What happened? How'd he get that way? Is he a human who stayed down there too long, Descent style, or is he a god, or right? But nothing is explained, and I just think that's great. That's the VHS vibe to me.
And I hope they never do.
I hope they never do.
I like it unexplained and weird.
Absolutely. All right, so that is VHS 94 overall.
And if you like weird, you should subscribe to the show.
Indeed.
we're not that weird,
Oh.
but like,
Good pitch.
It's, we like weird. You like weird. Let's not make this weird.
Here's the thing. If you review, I know that we're all now newly in the cult of Ratma. So just leave us a Hail Ratma.
That's
whatever
perfect.
whatever Ratma you want to do. Pitch me on different Ratma ways to hail him, because I haven't seen him since the movie. So apparently,
if we
what
just
I'm
get
saying is not
one
working.
review that says Hail Ratma, that's enough for me.
Cool.
That's enough for me to fight through an episode. Mad allergies.
Yeah, you did a great job. you made it.
Oh, so what if I did have allergies and this was just a new voice? I was like, anyways, thanks for listening to this. I wish. Okay, well maybe I'll pray to Ratma to cure my allergies,
Good idea.
or I'll use his acid spit as like a saline
Please,
solution.
please don't.
That would clear that shit right up.
What
though.
is that, like the drip thing? When you do that, don't do that with Ratma.
No,
Ratma blood or
I did
Ratma
do the
acid
I did
or-
do the drip thing today. It was Vicks, so like, oh my god, dude, I was able to smell scents I've never smelled before. Like that Vicks stuff is no joke, dude. That's seriously like it opens up like another hole in your face. Like it's so good. If we could get one sponsor for the show, that would be. It would be Vicks. I would.
That's the most random
I'll plug
sponsor.
Vicks. I'll plug Vicks right now. They're not even a.
You are.
Yeah. Do you want to not sound like me? Get Vicks. You just put.
Do you want a third hole in your skull?
Yeah, you want a third hole in your skull? You can either go to Vicks or Ratma. Ratma for president. Stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.